Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian and his trusty sidekick.
Hello.
Today we're having a look at sergeants on horses, sergeant cavalry. Sergeant cavalry were the sort of backbone of the cavalry arm, and they would primarily support the knights in combat, usually riding behind them to hit anyone on the head who hadn't been trampled to death yet, or they would be sent off on the flanks to make sure that enemy skirmish troops didn't get around the edges. And at the end of the battle, they're used to hunt down an army that is running away. If you notice with the very long axe, it's got a much longer reach, and the mace has got a much longer reach than a normal mace used by an infantryman, because you need to be able to hit someone from the saddle. Like the knight's horses, the saddle was also a high saddle. It had a high back and a high front, enabling you to use a spear. Typically, they never used lances, but typically all the troops would have a spear, and it would be used usually to jab down. What you would do is you would ride up behind your own infantry and you would stab down with the spear. That was what it was mainly used for. And then when you're actually in combat, you can just use the spear to stab away at people. You wouldn't typically use it to charge with. It's not really long enough. It's only about between 6 and 8 feet long. Between 5 to 6 feet long. It's not a very long spear. But it was used, and it was quite useful because it has a nice long reach that you can use to stab away at the enemy. The horses would have been locally procured, so they would actually have been smaller than the horses you can see here. But that's the horses you get in the box, and it doesn't really make any difference. Paint-wise, they're painted in the livery of the Lavonian order. They are heavy infantry, so they're sergeant heavy infantry, completely covered in mail, with a helmet or something to defend their heads. They are quite covered in dirt as well, because they have to dismount to fight occasionally, so they're going to get their stuff all messed up. And they could fall off the horse, which is the most common form of injury actually in the period.
And break neck.
Oh, you could break, no, not usually break your neck, because the helmet would just fall off. Oh, there you go. Questions?
Were they heavy armoured?
Yes. Yeah, full chainmail head to toe. Literally, it was a suit you actually stepped into.
Was the cavalry fast?
Well, yes. I would say they would be classed as fast cavalry, although the armour would weight the horse down a little. The horses were really a lot smaller than modern horses. So the horses probably would be better at taking the weight. I don't know if anyone's ever done a study into it. They're not the same size horses as knights would ride. Knights would ride much larger horses, huge things, which scared the life out of the Mamelukes, because the Teutons. The Mongols would ride small horses and small fast horses, and the Mamelukes would ride small armed horses, and the knights would ride up on a horse 2 foot taller than their horse, and so they'd be like little people on ponies to the knights, and the knights would just hit them with an axe and they'd go away. So yeah, the Mongols looked really resplendent in their armour, but the knights didn't care about people looking good in armour. Against the Russians, it's probably a pretty decent unit to use, because you're fighting against either troops with very little armour or troops that are much easier to fight against wearing this sort of kit. I don't know how to say that. A lot of the local defence troops would not be wearing the full-on scale armour that the Russians would wear. They would usually just wear a cloth jacket or something. Or if they're lucky, a halberd or a leather halberd or a gambeson. So these troops would be much better armoured than them. As for the Muslim soldiers that they would fight against, they would just cut them down. Just nowhere near enough armour to stop something like that. Next question.
Did you have to be a trained soldier to be a sergeant?
Yeah, you're already good at riding when you actually joined, and you would often join with a horse. You weren't given a horse. So at least when you started off, you would have pretty good equestrian skills, so you'd be able to ride a horse pretty well. And then you have to learn to fight on the back of a horse, which is not easy. Fighting on the back of the horse isn't easy at all. Normally these troops, when not in a massive pitched battle, where they'd act as a unit, either to block scouting troops or to ride up behind the infantry and stab downwards. Pass me a couple of spearmen. So you would have your shield wall like this, and this man would ride up behind, and the spears would be facing forwards, and he would stab his spear downwards onto the troops they're fighting against here. And that means that the troops have their shields down to try and block these spearmen, but these can stab at the heads and the shoulders of the soldiers they're fighting against. But when they're actually out on patrol just doing the normal duty, they would actually dismount to fight, because the horse isn't armoured. If you have an unarmoured horse, you don't really want to be getting into a big fist fight, so you're going to want to dismount from your horse to actually fight. Hence the larger shield. I didn't mention this in the sergeant's video. The sergeants, the mounted sergeants, tend to have too small a shield. They have a very small target shield, and these troops would actually have had a large shield, an infantry shield, a full body shield. That's what they would have carried. And you can see from the shape of the shield, when the rider is actually attacking, his whole body is actually covered. So it's a pretty good shield for this sort of combat. And then you would actually dismount to fight, and your shield is now a spearman's shield. So it's nice and big, and you can hide behind it. Next question.
That's it.
That was a boring one, wasn't it?
No.
No? Nothing else interesting to add?
No.
No? Oh, well, there we go then. Yeah, that's it. So, thank you very much for watching. Outro.
So if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. Comment down below what you think of the Lavonian Order Sergeants Cavalry. No.
They're mounted sergeants.
Mounted Sergeants.
Yeah. Mounted sergeants. This is keep it simple.
And then from me.
And everything from him. Goodbye.
See ya.